We are saddened to announce the death of Winson Edward, also known as Tall, Philbot, and TX22 of St. Paul's Lane, Vieux-Fort, who passed away at his residence on Monday, January 26, 2026 at 5:53 p.m. He was 69 years old. Left to mourn, his children, McGarvey Dave Francis, residing in Texas, Mario McDoom of Soufre, Taisha Edward of Groselet. His grandchildren, Mackenzie Francis of Texas, Tej Francois of Cul-de-Sac, his partner, Odisha Gonzague of Tiroche Micoud, his adopted children, Julius Primus, also known as Lolly, driver attached to St. Jude Hospital, Naturally, Gerleni, Darnell, and Leanne Charlemagne, all of Tiroche Micoud, Siobhan Gonzague of Tiroche Micoud, his aunt, Joycelyn Phillip of St. Jude's Highway, Vieux-Fort, his sisters, Lucille Chitoli of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Cynthia Satney of St. Jude's Highway, Vieux-Fort, Marcia Edward, also known as Cindy of Euronora Orchard, Vieux-Fort, Yvonne James of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Petulia Merlin Ashby of Barbados, his brothers, Norman Edward, also known as Sir of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Donovan Duncan Edward of Euronora Orchid, Vieux-Fort, his adopted siblings, Edward Carroll Phillip and his wife Esther, residing in Vieux-Fort, Regis Phillip and his wife Ingrid, residing in New York, Sota Phillip and his wife Patricia, residing in New York, Janice Phillip, residing in Curacao, daughter-in-law, Simone Francis of Texas, sister-in-law, Sonia Edward of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, brothers-in-law, Michael Chitoli of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Gilroy Satney of St. Jude's Highway, Vieux-Fort, John James of Lapanse Castries, Michelle Ashby of Barbados, his ex-spouse, Paula Polydor Edward of St. Jude's Highway, Vieux-Fort, his grandmother, Miss Thelma of the USA, his goddaughter and niece, Debbie Gale Edward Alexis and family Armstrong Alexis, other nieces, Ronna Lionel, residing in St. Martin, Melissa Phillip Francis, residing in Florida, Michelle Chitoli Prosper of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Janelle Marquise, residing in Barbados, Yanni Charlie, residing in P.I. Labrie, Abigail Ashby, residing in Canada, Alyssa Ashby Mirzay, residing in England, Dr. Sonita Edward of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Dr. Sherbaka Edward, residing in the United States, Sherma Thorpe, residing in Castries, Charlene James of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Terry Dawn, residing in Canada, Chelsea Edward of Euronora Orchid, Vieux-Fort, godson, Winsbert Phillip of Lacaille, Dennery, nephews, Steve Phillip, residing in Florida, Alvin Chitterley of Savans Bay, Vieux-Fort, Dr. Rohan Edward of Euronora Orchid, Vieux-Fort, Jervon James of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Ed Edward of Palmis, Vieux-Fort, Yannick Joseph of Piru, Vieux-Fort, families, Phillip families of Castries, Choiseul, Dennery, England, Trinidad, and Curacao, children of deceased uncle George Edward of Saffir Labrie, modest families of Choiseul, Castries, Dennery, Vieux-Fort, Micoud, and the USA, the Theophilus families of Choiseul, Castries, and St. Croix, Theophane family of Choiseul, Burke families of Vieux-Fort and Castries, God and Faisal families of Castries, Nicholas Clark and Charles families of St. Lucia and abroad. Caregivers, Nurse Thera Harlow of St. Jude Hospital. Julie Fidelis Edward of Vieux-Fort. Friends, Honorable Danny Butcher, Parliamentary Representative of Vieux-Fort South. Dr. Kenny Anthony, former Prime Minister and Representative of Vieux-Fort South. Ex-fire officers Stephen Mathias and Blanchard 98 of Bambino. Linus Fontenelle, taxi driver of Vieux-Fort. Lucien Norby Joseph, former president of the National Taxi Union. Jovita Moise, residing in the United States. Rene Alexander, also known as Father or Padre of Labrie. John Shallery, also known as Chiffonnet, residing in the U.S. Mr. and Mrs. Bryce of Vieux-Fort. Torian and family of Vieux-Fort. Members of the New Frontier Taxi Association. Former colleagues of the National Workers' Union. Councillors of the Vieux-Fort South Constituency Council. Founding members of Uptown Rebel Sports Club. Members of the Lucian Crew. Comrades of the St. Lucia Labour Party. The funeral service of our beloved Winson Edward, also known as Tall, Philpott, and TX22 of St. Paul's Lane, Vieux-Fort, will be held at St. Paul's Anglican Church in Vieux-Fort on Wednesday, February 25, 2026 at 2 p.m. Thereafter, his body will be cremated. Note: the family requests that a touch of red be worn in his honor. His body now lies at Rambali's funeral parlor, Latony, Vieux-Fort. May his soul rest in perfect peace and rise in glory.